I don't know what I did with the first one. So I apologize if you clicked the first live thing I posted. I thought it was going to come out of my phone, not the computer. Whatever. We're learning here, okay? This is like literally my first couple of these. So I'm still learning this whole process and what this looks like. So I also did not know that these things are recorded on YouTube because they're not on other, well, they are, but they're not posted on other platforms. So surprise. Hopefully you enjoyed the review from yesterday. I am very aware of that now. So I wanted to start today with a kind of part out of my book. It's about believing in yourself. So the conversation today is really about building self-trust and building confidence and kind of like how to do that. So that's what I do. I am a coach and I help people build self-trust and confidence so that they can be their authentic self. May that be in relationships, may that be live their authentic life, speak their truth, whatever that may be. So I'm going to read this little blurb and then we'll see where we go from here. So, avoiding danger is no safer in the long run than outright exposure. The fearful are caught as often as the bold. Low self esteem and timidity are often Siamese twins. Many of us have a long history of holding back and fading into the wallpaper. We never felt it was our place to get the ball rolling or to take charge in any way. Yet building self esteem takes boldness, at least to the extent of trying new actions that go against the grain. There is an overwhelming tendency to call passivity patience and to crown inaction with virtuous justifications like letting go or turning it over. The magic of building a healthier self esteem is like the magic of building the Great Pyramid of Egypt or the medieval cathedrals of Europe. It isn't magic at all. These wonders were created by millions of hours of work and sweat on the part of hundreds and thousands of people. Beauty came to be because the effort was made. You don't have to be a genius to know what it takes to build self esteem. Most of us know darn well that it takes enough boldness to challenge our limitations and do what it takes to get the job done. I am entitled to my own life in my own hands. So, this is a book I often come back to and I read. There's like excerpts for every day. And I just felt called to kind of read that today to kind of start off my discussion and my live. And, I think that it brings up a really good point. I think we hear a lot, and I know I do personally from tarot readings and things like that, where it's like, oh, it's an overnight success. It happened overnight, right? Those kinds of things. And I have always felt like that was something I wanted, but also like not realistic, right? Um, and the truth is that it's not realistic. You when you see somebody make it big or become big, you don't see all of the work and the time and the healing that they had to do behind the surface. And even some of the most successful people, I hear this all the time and I actually really love this part of it, but even the most successful people, they had to show up even when no one else showed up. So, everybody starts at a point in time where there's nobody that comes to their events. There's nobody that's calling them. There's nobody that's following through. And it's all part for the process. And I think what's really important to understand is that that's not information that it's not working, right? But that's information that you've started something and you're learning how to move through it. And one of the things that's really difficult when it comes down to that piece, and this is where a lot of people kind of like fall backwards or they give up, to be honest with you, is that you're not going to get that recognition right away, right? You have to be able to hold that within yourself internally. You have to be able to kind of like know that whatever it is that you're doing is going to inevitably be successful. And you have to trust in that in yourself. And, most of the most successful people showed up when they didn't want to, and they showed up and nobody else showed up. And it's something that takes momentum, it takes time, and it takes consistency. It's not something that happens overnight, nor is it something that happens right away. And A lot of people, and I know even for myself, like when you first start doing something new, right? And then you don't get the expectation of the results that you're hoping for right away. There's this feeling of, well, is this even working? And am I even good enough? Right? That little asshole in our head starts kind of telling us or trying to make sense of what's actually happening. And I just want to say that what's actually happening is that you're building momentum, you're learning, you're growing, right? And so it's really important when you're first starting something new. And this is important when it comes to building self trust and being consistent, is that you don't have these really high expectations of what the outcome is going to be. Because a lot of the times that's actually what keeps people from doing the thing. That's actually what keeps people from following through, is having these extreme high expectations of what it needs to be and what it needs to produce and the results that need to happen right then and there. And I would also say that it's a little bit of a people pleasing kind of perfectionistic thing to feel like once I start doing this thing, everything's just going to fall into place, which, yes, it will over time, but it's not something that happens like overnight, like a lot of the tarot readers say, or things like that. Nobody ever sees the effort and the time and the consistency that you put into something until it's finally like in front of a bunch of people. Like nobody sees that, right? You know, I personally love Van Gogh. I don't know if you love Van Gogh. Van Gogh is like one of my favorite artists. And I think it's like the sunflowers that he's painted many times. He would paint them every single day, 2 to 3 times a day for years. For years. That was like his warm up. And, he didn't become a great painter because he painted one painting and then it took off, right? He became a great painter because he consistently showed up and he consistently kept painting. And he consistently just trusted and believed that it was going to be good and that it would all work out. But also, the other thing is, too, is that not only did he trust in himself to do that, he loved what he was doing, right? And that's the difference between someone who can follow through and be consistent and not. It comes down to you being able to kind of love what you're doing and enjoy what you're doing enough to be able to keep putting the effort in and keep showing up, even when the results aren't where you want them to be. And I just feel like sometimes that like time where you're not getting those results is a lot longer than you'd like it to be. A lot of more than often it is, right? And during this time, you're kind of learning patience, you're learning perseverance, you're learning to show up. And that's like what you're meant to learn in that, in my personal opinion, that's what you're meant to learn in that time, is you're meant to learn how to be patient, you're meant to learn how to show up, you're meant to learn how to build trust with yourself and believe in yourself even when no one else does. And I think that when you have a solid like sense of self and you are confident and you trust in yourself and you're doing something that you love, it makes it a lot easier because you know that getting to where you want to go and reaching that goal is inevitable. There's nothing that can get in the way of it. And, even in the excerpt that I read this morning, right, it talks about like the Egyptian pyramids and how it took thousands and thousands of people to create these pyramids, probably many, many, many years as well, right? So much blood, sweat, and tears, slaves as well, but that's another thing, you know. And the reality is that, nothing happens overnight. Nothing happens in that way. And you have to really be a go-getter and someone who really believes in what you're doing to completely shift and change your life. And without that solidity within yourself, you will struggle. It will be difficult. And, you know, as you like the other piece of this too is like as you continue to do certain things, right? You get ready. I think that's another myth or misconception, is that people think that they will like be ready eventually to do the thing. And I don't think that's actually true. I don't think you're ever ready to do what it is that you want to do. I think it's more so about you getting ready as you go and you getting better as you go and you getting more comfortable as you go. And that just takes practice in showing up. And, you know, it's so funny because, like, in the world that we live in now, right? I used to serve tables, like, years ago, for a long time, actually. I worked at the Cheesecake Factory. It's so funny to think about now because it feels like a lifetime ago, many lifetimes ago. But I used to work at the Cheesecake Factory, and when I worked at the Cheesecake Factory, we learned, like, within my training, which is intensive, by the way, because that menu is so huge, um, but we learned that have you have 7 seconds to get to a table and to, like, get to that person before they feel like you forgot about them, and that was, like, probably over 10 years ago when I was doing that work, so I'm sure that the instant gratification and expectation from people at this point is much quicker, and this is where people usually get stuck. This is where people usually fall off, is that they think that, like, once they start doing this thing and once they make the decision, right, everything's just gonna kind of fall into place. And when it doesn't, that's when they start to backstep. That's when they start to doubt. That's when they start to hesitate. That's when they start to second guess. I've also seen a lot of people where, they'll start to choose to do a lot of different things instead. They'll be like, well, this isn't working. So maybe I need to do this instead. Or maybe I need to do this instead. Or maybe I should add this to it. When really the reality is that you just need to go balls to the wall and just full force on one thing and just follow it through consistently and keep showing up over and over and over again, even if you're not getting the results, because the results will come. And I think that that's, like, not something that's discussed often when we're talking about, building something different or making a change in your life. I have a client right now who's on a health journey, and they are really working very hard to, get into shape. And they've talked about, like, the frustration that they feel around, like, they've been showing up consistently for about a month now, and they haven't seen the results yet. And, we started talking about, like, what are the other ways that you're seeing the results? Like, maybe you're not seeing results in the way that you want to be seeing results, right? But that doesn't mean you're not seeing results. So, for example, I brought up, like, are you just as sore as you were when you started working out? No, that's shifted. Okay. Can you do more things than you used to do while you're working out? Yes. Can you carry more weight? Yes. Right. So, what your expectation is, right, of what you want this to be and what you want it to look like and what the result needs to be for you to be able to feel successful or feel like it's a success hasn't actually happened yet, but you have had all of these successes. You have had all of these moments, right, where things actually are showing you that they're getting better, they're getting easier, like that change is happening, right? But you're not able to recognize that. And this is where it's really helpful to have somebody outside of yourself to be able to help you to see those things and kind of shine a light on it. It's hard for us to see those things, especially when we're a perfectionist and we have certain expectations of things. It's a lot easier for somebody else to come and look in and help us see those things and help remind us of those pieces, you know? So, I mean, that's just an example, but I think that just because you're not seeing the result, right, that you want, there's still all of these other things happening. And the question is are you seeing them? Are you acknowledging them? Are you noticing them? Are you taking note of them? And when you are able to take note of those things, when you are able to acknowledge those pieces, when you're able to see those pieces, right? Then you can actually, like, keep going, right? Because that's why they say the small things matter, because those small things do matter. Those small things are what keeps you moving forward. They keep you motivated. And if you're not acknowledging those small things, then what's the fucking point? You know? Like, it's definitely gets to a point where it's like, if you're not seeing those things, then it's what's the point? But I also believe that it takes a regulated nervous system to see those things. It takes you being able to pull yourself out of this survival headspace to be able to see those things. It takes you being able to be calm and regulated to be able to see those things, and that's why it's helpful to have somebody outside of yourself, because a lot of the time when we're emotionally attached to something, It's really hard for us to step outside of the box and see the big picture. So that's why we have so many different ways to receive support, right? And to receive feedback to see these things. And that's actually what moves us forward even faster, right? Is being able to have that feedback and that support that we need to be able to like point out the things that we don't see and help us see the things that we don't see. And then eventually, right, if it's pointed out, you'll start to notice it more, right? But it takes that initial pointing out to be able to see that growth, to be able to see that result is there, just not in the way that you expect it to. And I think that that's where a lot of people get stuck, is that they're just not seeing the result in the way that they expect to see the result. And that makes it difficult to move forward, right? Because if you're looking for something, right, and you're saying that this is going to bring me apples, but you're seeing oranges, you're like, where the hell are the apples, right? Like, I didn't want oranges. I don't want these oranges. I want the apple at the end, right? And I think that that takes time and that takes consistency. But the important part is being able to really notice the oranges along the way and see the importance in the oranges along the way to keep you motivated, to keep showing up, to be consistent, right? Consistency comes from being able to acknowledge those little things. And kind of like as I'm talking about this, I'm thinking about my own journey. When I start something new, a lot of the time I think to myself, okay, I'm doing this new thing and it's uncomfortable as F, right? Because usually it is. And what is it that I did well today, right? What is it that I actually received from doing this thing today? I received practice. I showed up for myself. Right? I did the thing. And that's where I usually try to start is like, I'm becoming more comfortable doing this thing. I showed up for myself doing this thing. And that was me showing up for what I truly want and my end goal, right? And so it's a compounding thing that happens over time. And it's really about you being able to see those compounding things so that you can keep moving forward, so that you can keep going towards that goal. So I feel like I talked about kind of like the two myths, right? Like it doesn't happen overnight. There's so much time that is spent doing things that people just don't see until it's there, right? And then I talked about like this expectation of instant gratification, which our society really struggles with. And I feel like the phones probably make that really difficult too, or harder at least. So that's something to kind of be aware of as well. Um, but when it comes to building self trust and building confidence, it really is about like you believing in yourself. And even when you're not receiving those results, right? Like that's kind of at the core of manifestation. Like you can visualize things, you can want certain things, but you also have to be realistic with yourself about how are you ever going to obtain that thing if you don't put yourself out there, right? If you're not doing something that scares the shit out of you, how are you going to get there? Right? Because visualizing and, having the idea in your head and just following that, it's a beautiful thing. It will get you started, but it's not going to keep you going. And so I think it's just really important to recognize that there's a lot of different components when it comes to building self trust and building confidence to change your life, to transform, to be different. And I go over a lot of these different things in my Sovereign Self Intensive. And this is the program that I created. It's a 3-month program. And by the end of it, you are stepping into a new identity. By the end of month one, you're already living that new identity in ways and feeling it differently. And it's really about you learning how to come back to your authenticity and really get to know who you truly are and what you truly want from life so that you can become visible and show up authentically in relationships, in society, in different ways, right? But stand strong on who you are and what you know about yourself. And so it really teaches you how to, stop doubting yourself, stop sabotaging, like, and not feeding those things anymore. The reality is those things don't completely go away, but how we attend to them and how we deal with them is different, right? That becomes different. And there's many tools and ways to do that that work and can actually help you to start overcoming that. And I just think it's really important here to kind of like note too that, you're always going to have those things come up when you are leveling up, when you are doing something different, when you are doing something new, right? Fear is always going to be a part of that. That's like unavoidable. It's learning how to be in the discomfort of fear and do it anyways, and learning how to like move through those things even though they are coming up, right? And this is where it can be really helpful to have support and somebody to help you see and move and keep going, right? But also this is where it's really important for you to start learning how to do that for yourself as well. So I think, this is why coaching works. This is why therapy works, right? This is why it's important to have connection with other people. I mean, even you probably talk to your friends and family about what you're working towards. And when someone says you're doing a great job, you feel good about that, right? And that kind of helps you keep going or helps you do more, right? So, we really are here to help each other and to support each other and to serve each other. And there's so many different ways to go about doing that, right? But I just think that like you got to decide what it is that you want for your life and you got to choose it, right? And that's the other thing, right? Like I'm getting ready. I've told myself that for a long time. Well, I'm just getting ready. I'll get there eventually, right? That was also in the reading this morning. And the reality is that you're never going to be ready. I used to be the type of person where I would plan everything out. Like I would read everything, I would figure out all the steps on how to do something right. And to be honest with you, a lot of the times that actually overwhelmed me to the point where I was like, okay, I can't do this. This is too much, right? Instead of taking it moment by moment, day by day, step by step. And I think it's about learning how to break things down into smaller movements and learning to recognize that you're never going to be ready. But as you do that thing, as you show up for that thing, you get ready. There's no other choice, right? Like you're showing up for that thing and you're going to get ready as you go. But many of us kind of like tell ourselves, well, I need to do this before I can do that. This needs to be in place before I can do that. And the truth is that why? Like, where did you learn that that needed to be that way? Who told you that? Is that you just prolonging the inevitable? Is that you just self sabotaging? Is that you just doubting yourself? Because I would say that there's probably a piece of that that's true, right? You probably are doubting yourself. You probably are just unsure, right? Or too afraid to take the leap or struggling to move through the discomfort of just doing the thing. It's not about everything being perfect and in place and completely figured out before you go because the reality is like, you never know where you're going to end up and you never know how things are going to actually play out. And I think that, if you look back on your life, did you think you'd be here? Do you look back on your life, did you imagine everything happening the way that it did? No, probably not. There's tons of different things that changed and shifted, right? And you gotta be flexible and you gotta go with the flow and you gotta learn to kind of move with those things. And so I think being ready is kind of bullshit. You're never ready. You just got to do the thing and you'll get ready as you go and you'll figure it out as you go and you'll refine as you go. And that's actually what it's meant to be. But I think that like for me who used to be a perfectionist, that's really hard, right? To like not have it all figured out. And when you're changing or you're doing something new, you can never have it all figured out. And that's something that you have to come to acceptance with to be able to move forward. And if you are struggling in acceptance, then you'll come up with every reason on why you can't, or every reason on why it's not time, or every reason on why it's not ready, or every reason about why it's not good enough, or you're not good enough, right? So I think, these are some of the myths that I have seen when it comes to making a change and transforming. And I just wanted to share that with you today. I also want to leave you with a question. If you fully 100% trusted yourself and you knew that what you wanted was inevitable, it would be yours no matter what would you do today? What action would you take? Really sit with that. And if you want to work with me one on one, I offer coaching. You can take a look at crystalclearmystic.com. And I also have the Sovereign Self, which is more of a kind of group and community kind of work 3-month program to help you to develop self trust and confidence. So you can take a look at those things on my website. I also have a self trust reset on my website that can help you start in that process. So you can take a look at that as well. But just know, like, nothing is too far out of reach. If you believe it to be, it could be. You just need to learn to trust in yourself, even when you're not seeing everything externally. But I hope you have a great day.